Good morning, Kurt.
I like it.
Kurt, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
What's your background? You're a physical therapist by education, but I love people who start like, I'm a physical therapist by education, but, and then they say but, and I'm like, now it's going to get interesting.
And
you're going to add
instead
something.
of but, and, right? So the PT never goes away, right? I still, family members, work at a large company where people aren't always PTs.
Right.
And, hey,
can
you
you
look at my shoulder? I had a thing over the
feeling
weekend.
a little wonky.
So yeah, PT by trade. Done a myriad of roles here at ATI. I've been here 16 years,
wow.
So I have a long tenure with the organization. I moved through multiple roles within the clinics, then moved into our clinical excellence team in 2016, I think it was. Had an opportunity to do that where we worked on continuing education courses for the teams, clinical-based courses. Also had opportunity to work on mentorship program, things like that. Then back into the clinics for a little bit, but now I work within our HR department, believe it or not, which is something that I never really thought I would say, was I am a PT and I work in HR.
But it sort of makes sense if you pay attention to what the H and the R mean. It's like humans.
Right.
And they are your most, especially in a PT organization, it feels like the people are the product. Yeah. They're the thing. They're the service providers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and so I work within the ATI Academy, help out with leadership development, learning and development content, and we have a team that is phenomenal, and we have folks that are non-PTs in the academy as well. And I've picked their brains around because they've been in learning and development in other industries. And one of the questions I asked was, is this where learning and development lives? Like in non-PT companies, right. In the Accentures, the larger companies, is that where they're like, yeah, and it's exactly what you said. They're like, well, human resources, human development, like it's all. I'm like, well, yeah, that makes sense. So why did we not have it before?
So what kind of information do you create? Because I think the easy way to look at it is, well, of course, someone who's walking around like students, which are all over the place here as we're recording at CSM, but it's also if you're a clinician who's been around for a year, 3, 5, 7, 16 years. So what kind of things do you create there? Because that's got to feel like well, you're constantly helping me make sure I don't feel disconnected. That's the word or the emotion that people typically say is, man, I graduated from school, I felt all connected. Yeah. And I graduated, and then it was sort of like, hey, good luck. You're on your own. Yeah. Find out new information however you want, whenever you want. And you're like, well, however, I don't really know how, and whenever, I don't really have a lot of time. How do I do that? Where do I fit that in? Yeah. So walk me through what do you teach? How do you teach it? Yeah.
So it's a great question. So we have 3 really prongs to what we teach within the academy. We have clinical, which is the things you would think about as CEUs, right? So it's, hey, I want to go and learn more about, I feel I'm not great with the thoracic spine. All right, let's get content around the thoracic spine and bring that in. We have professional, so it's around, hey, I need to be better with communication and be better with utilizing various tools within.
I think that is a very good pillar to have, just from my lens, from coming from communications. I think it's the untapped superpower of our profession.
Yeah, and then there's leadership, which is, all right, some of those things also, hey, making a transition from being a clinician to a leader, they're not the same skills, right? So, hey, what are the extra skills I need? It's actually been really interesting where we've been looking at the things we brought in, the team brought in to be the foundation of our leadership development. We've actually now started tying into the clinical side to say, to your point, look, these things about how to communicate effectively with your employees, not that far of a leap to say it's the same way we should be communicating with our patients and say, hey, how do they view the world? What is their value? What do they want out of this treatment? How do we meet them there? And how do we make it not about us? And how do we make it about them to make sure that they see the value?
And you're speaking my language. You just gave a presentation the other day. You familiar with Simon Sinek? It's the most viewed TED Talk of all time. Start with why. Yeah. And this is a way to get clicks online, man, right here. First of all, take something everybody thinks and they agree with and they nod and say no to that.
That's right. And then go, no.
And they go, no. So here's why Simon Sinek is wrong. By the way, he's mostly right, but he's just a little wrong. And I think he might actually agree with me why I think he's wrong. Yeah. He says start with why. I think what you and I just talked about is actually more accurate. You start with who. Because after the who changes, everything after that changes. Yeah. Me talking to you, our why, or why we're communicating right now, we're doing an interview, we're talking about, learning and how long that goes and how, that's one thing. But if I change who's sitting next to me, the why of why we're sitting next to each other changes. Yeah. So paying attention to that, attention, spending time on crafting those messages. And then as a PT who creates content like this, maybe you'd appreciate this, I remember when I learned, remember the FIT VP principle, frequency, intensity, time, type, volume, progression. That's how you build better biceps, right? It's how you get your pecs and your glutes, all those things. Those are communication principles. How often are you communicating? What's the intensity of the emotion, time, type, volume, progression? So I think when you break it down similarly to how you just did, which is, hey, this is important. How do we teach this? You go to the basics, and those are the basics, and they're terribly important, in my opinion. Communication, it's everywhere, man.
Oh yeah. Well, and what we found is it's about looking outside of how. So you need to be aware of how you normally view the world and interact, and how you communicate.
Yes.
You also then need to work on your versatility of how do I communicate with others. So I naturally am not so this is cat out of the bag. I'm not a very social person.
What?
Like
You've been hanging out here for 2
I know.
days.
So I'm talking to people like. It's a little bit of a face. Like I'm here. I know it's something, but my natural, like where I draw energy from is from reading, being with the family, going on a hike. Like that's where I draw energy from. So actually, when I leave here,
you're exhausted.
I'm going to go home. Tomorrow we're going to probably do something with the family, try and spend time with them, a little bit quieter environment. But I know that this space and the people I'm interacting with want that.
Yeah.
So I try to adapt to like, hey, it's about you, not about me.
Right.
I'm okay with being tired when I go home because I know that's what people want. And so the same thing with patients. And so when we start thinking about our patients and thinking about people taking continuing ed and learning, and like there's skill set things that we need to learn. Fill the tool bag, right? You hear that coming out of school. I want to get as many tools in my tool bag so I know what to do.
Yeah.
All right, how do I use those tools? With who? What's the right approach? And thinking about what's the patient want from that, not just, so this was rambling a bit here, but.
That's what my show's about, so keep going.
Right, I'm amongst friends now, so you remember, you see clinicians that come back from doing, and no offense to taping, but they do a taping course, and now then Monday, everyone has tape.
When the world's full of, when all you have is a hammer, the world's full of nails.
Exactly, right? And then you get a new hammer, and now it's a different type of nail you see. And like, so really working on like, yes, that's going to happen. Our job is to work so that the academy partnering with the clinical excellence team at ATI is to work at like, all right, how do we make sure people have those skills because they need to learn them, and now how do we apply them in the right way with the right people so it's not everyone.
Right.
This patient wants this. They value it. They trust me to provide it to them. And now they're bought in. Now they see the value of coming in, and they're going to come back, and they see why it adds to them getting a good outcome, and we've explained that and all those things.
Yeah, and this is how they consume it, right? I mean, I remember my clinical affiliations. I was trying really hard to do everything just like my CI.
Oh, yeah.
Like be a photocopy of her because I was like, I have to impress the CI. And then I realized I had to make the patients happy.
Yeah.
Or I had to meet them where they were.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like, you go to pick your patient up in the waiting room or whatever, and it was that 30 or 40 feet of, okay, who in the lobby is making eye contact? Who is this person? It starts there.
You're assessing immediately.
You are immediately reading, like, what's this person vibe feel like? Or what is their body language telling me? Like, are they uncomfortable? Are they, like, popping up? And they're like, hey, I'm here.
Ready to go.
You're Jimmy.
Yeah.
Let's go. And you immediately have to do what you just talked about, which is I have to fit my communication style to the environment that I'm in, because in this place, this is how people are expecting or looking to interact with people. It's short bursts, people walking by a booth. So the time, frequency, intensity, time, type, short. Like, the person doesn't want to stand here for 2 hours, right? I don't know, minute, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So you're trying to assess, hey, how are you? Where are you from? And trying to read that information as fast as you can to say, okay, how can I help you? Help me understand what
what are you looking for?
What are you looking for? Maybe I have that. I'm not selling anything.
Yeah.
What are you looking for?
Yeah.
That is an exact clinical situation. Yeah. Help me understand why you're coming in today.
Yeah, and so I think, I help oversee all of our student programs, so bringing students into our clinics, and we do a pre-onboarding call with students where they call. I personally hop on with them, talk to them. Now, I can't say it's always going to be me as we grow, but I'll get a question about that. So what's the patient population like at ATI? I say, our goal is to help every patient that walks in our doors. And I pause intentionally to let them kind of think, because they're probably going, oh my God, I got to know every diagnosis. Like, I got to know how to treat everybody. What I mean by help is we need to make sure that person gets what they need to get better. It might be with us. It might not be with us.
Right.
And I go down a little bit of a story when I'm from Chicago and worked in one of our clinics closer to the city. And we had all the other big players in all the other settings around. I had a patient who I had treated, brought his wife in who had had a stroke years ago and had plateaued. And he said, hey, you help me out. I would love for you to work with her. And I told him, I said, I really appreciate you trusting me. I am sports residency trained.
Right.
This is not, we got neuro clinics all over. we need to make sure we get you. So then my job was to make sure that he had the skills to find the right person, not just anyone there.
Yeah, you trusted me. Trust me when I say that this person or this person is gonna help out your wife better than I can.
And it's nuanced. So then I'm working in a clinic closer to our house that's more rural Illinois, kind of one of the last clinics before you get to really rural Illinois. And I had a patient come in status post-stroke. And I do a Google search of neuro, and it's 45 minutes to the nearest. So then it was a very honest conversation. Hey, here's my background. Here's what I can do for you. I know there's going to be a point in time where I reach my limit of helping you. We're going to assess this every 2 weeks, see where we're at. Here's the nearest place where you would get a specialist, a neuro specialist. Didn't really say it's up to you, but kind of a, how does that sound?
Right.
They said, well, yeah, let's start here and see and I think we went for 4 weeks, and I finally went, you know what? I think it's worth your time to go there now.
Yeah.
We could probably, it was a little bit of playing the waiting game. It's going to take you 3 weeks to get in. I'm like, let's start that process.
Right.
Because I realized, I'm reaching my limit on what I know and I can do for you. And I need to know I need help. And you need to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
So,
It's like expectation setting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we hear all the time is that people don't understand. You hear the worst thing I think you can hear is, how's PT going? Like, it's good, I guess. Like, that person needs to understand how far they are away from the next milestone. They need to own that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll ask my PT next time how it's going.
Yeah.
No. They don't decide. You decide how it's going because you're the person going through this process. So expectation setting along the way is killer.
So I'll take it into, because I know we were going to be talking about continuing ed, right?
Yeah.
And so that's going to help. So I think there's actually a good connection to a clinician in their career, right? So when I came out, how long have you been out?
Graduated in 16.
Okay, so I came out 2008. Goal setting for me as a clinician was, do you know all your patients' names?
Oh.
Are you greeting them at the door? Like, there wasn't a way to objectively measure how we got people better. So with outcomes now, like, I actually think there's a tie in that to, hey, as a clinician, like, I need to know what the expectation is for me to get, and how do I reassess, am I getting the result, am I getting patients better with the con ed I'm taking, with the internal development I have from my leadership team at the company I work for, like, how am I doing? And so we have a huge outcomes database that helps with that. Prior to that, it was like, I don't know, I take some stuff, people seem to be happy. Yeah. My cancellations are low-ish.
It's the opposite. Are there any complaints? No.
Yeah, no.
Oh, great.
Must be good.
Must be good, right? There's no bad, so there must be good.
Yeah.
That's not true.
Yeah, exactly. So really, our mentality at looking at continuing education is, you should be thinking about what the patient and the community need from you. So you look at your outcomes and you go, yeah, I like treating hips. So I had a hip background, worked with a hip surgeon in Chicago. So I love the hip and all about it. I have a bunch of necks though, and if I look at my scorecard, I'm not very good. I should be humble enough to say I need to invest time there. I might not find it exciting or energizing because I like treating the hip. My patients and my community need me to work on the neck so that they can get the result that they deserve on it.
So now that you know that, because there's a scorecard.
Right.
Now there's a place to go to get better, to improve that little metric or that area on the scorecard.
Right. And so when we started working on rolling out the scorecard, there was always talk about, like, oh, if my scores are too low, am I going to get fired? Right. Like, no. The intent is it gives you the highlighter of, this is what I need to focus on. Then you need to work with your leader on a plan.
Right.
How am I going to get there? What am I going to take? You got to reflect on all it is a body region. Right. You know, it could be a million diagnoses not a million, but a lot of things in there, right? Is it stiff shoulders? Is it loose shoulders? Is it, headaches? Like, what's the population? You got to reflect on it and see, well, where's my gap so that I can develop a plan to get better. The problem comes if you set the plan and then don't do it.
Right.
I said I was going to take these courses, these things, and my score will go up. Right. You don't do that, and your score doesn't go up.
Right. Don't be upset with the results you didn't get from the work you didn't do.
And don't
but you didn't see it though.
Yeah. And if you did those things, and I worked with you as a leader to set the plan, and it didn't lead to a result.
New plan.
That's on me as a leader. We got to figure out a new plan. I let you down as a leader, and I need to be able to sit down with you and reassess and go, what did we miss?
Yeah.
We missed something in here that we need to develop a better plan for.
That's simple, right? But it's not necessarily easy.
Oh no.
Because get better, it's too ambiguous. Get better at what? How do I get better?
Yeah.
If I'm bad at something, I might be the worst person to make a plan to get better at it because I've been going a long time and I've gotten to this point by not being that great at it. So having that structure. It's simple, but not necessarily easy.
Well, and it's one of the biggest things would be the humility to admit you need help, right?
Yeah.
So
Step one, admitting
and
you have a problem.
You mentioned earlier about going with your CI and saying I need to be like them. Like, unfortunately, a lot of times we see really good CIs, and I say that unfortunately because then the student thinks I got to be like this when I get done. No, your CI wasn't like that when they were done.
Right.
They grew, they developed, they gained these skills. It's okay to make mistakes and ask for help. And so that's actually one of the things I push our clinical instructors on and say, look, you should be willing to draw your student in. Hey, you know what? I don't know the answer to that. Let's find out together.
Right.
Or, hey, let's reach out to this person in this clinic who's got a specialty in that and find out that gap that we both have.
Right. The one I wish I heard more of. And remember, I was a second career student coming into PT, so my CI was younger than me.
Yeah.
I really wish I heard more. I wouldn't have done it like that, but how you did it, it worked as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Because what I felt a lot was, did I do it the way you would have done it? And she was like, not really. Here's what I would have done. And I was like, oh, I took that as your way was
wrong.
I did it wrong.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of different ways to get to. If you, in fact, I'm good with quotes and bad with people who say them. If you think there's only one solution to the problem, you don't understand the problem.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was a big deal, and that set me back a lot. Because that touches on am I bad at this, and that touches your psychology and your emotions.
Yeah. Well, and so you think about what you just hit there. We can tie into also the patient experience of similar to, hey, you're doing an eval and you say, that's significant, and the patient goes, significant
how?
What does that mean?
You're bad or scary or unknown.
Right? I want to take my full eval, and then we'll talk about it, right? So your intent is positive on that. They're thinking, I have cancer, you're going to cut it off, I got to go back to the doctor and get an MRI. So the pausing, the investing in that patient, looking for the empathy side, lead with empathy of hey, I appreciate that might have been scary. Let me tell you what I meant by significant, and walking through that path with them and really connecting with them on hey, outside of myself. And so this is where, again, it's simple, not easy, because you're thinking about the eval, all the things I got to do. I gotta make sure I connect with your emotions and let you process that, so that then down the road, you're able to come down the path with me of what PT is like. Because otherwise, you're not hearing. I can do the best description of the value of PT.
Right.
If I said that's significant, you're thinking you're going to have to get something cut off. You're not hearing it. You're not even hearing it.
Right. You hear nothing beyond that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So really connecting in with our patients, using empathy and leaning into that side to say, hey, I'm here for you. And that's where I actually was looking at one of your past podcasts about, people don't know how much you care.
Yeah.
That
cliche.
The cliche part. And I would actually challenge you to say so know how much you care. I feel like a lot of times that's taken, I think we would agree when I was trying to read between the lines on it, was I care so much, and I'm in this, and what it should be is I care about you.
Right.
They need to see how much you care about them and their emotions in that moment.
Right.
And how do you actually care about getting me better, not just showing how great you are and your skills and all the no, it's about meeting you where you are.
Right.
So does that match and track with?
So yes.
Yeah.
So my twist of that, I think it was Eleanor Roosevelt or Teddy Roosevelt, it was one of the Roosevelts. They said a lot of quotes. Was a lot of people wound up. The pendulum swings too far in both directions, right?
Right.
What I think it was is everybody put mantras and vision statements and we care about you, and I was like, but you're telling me about. I care about you is telling you about me.
Yeah.
I want you to say, I can help 10,000 runners get back to the starting line. Okay, got it. By the way, I deeply care about helping runners so much. It can't be first, because it's sort of, I really care about all my patients. It's about me. I don't know who your best patient is. So of course, I'm gonna.
Okay.
It's clickbait.
The audience.
The audience.
Yeah,
who comes
I got
first?
You.
So talk about them, then later.
Yeah.
So we'll go deep. It's hard to visualize because maybe I'll put the slide up on the screen. But the order of questions to me is who were you talking to? Because again, everything changes after who.
Yeah.
Then what are their bads and goods? What are their problems, barriers, goals, and aspirations? Give me the two ends of the spectrum for them.
Yeah.
The third question is what, again, now we get to ask, what about you? What are you great at? Great at sports and hips, not so great at strokes and neuro recovery. That's okay.
Yeah.
Put everything that they are frustrated by and want to get to, and you're good at delivering. When you take a Venn diagram, cross those over, that's where Simon Sinek comes back. That is your shared why with that person, with that who.
Yes.
From there, it gets, in my mind, even more simple, because now it's how am I going to do this? Where am I going to do this? When am I going to do this? You can repeat and change the how, where, when.
Yeah.
So I break up the 6 questions that you can ask. Those, I mean, as a person who interviews people, those are the only things I got. I got 6 questions.
Yeah.
Who, what, where, when, why, how. I think there's a good order. It's who, what, and where those 2 whats cross is why, and then how, where, when. And I think clear communication, good expectation setting, comes from asking those questions or delivering those answers in a good order.
Yeah. Well, so the other piece that I'll add to that, because I agree, who else is in the conversation, right?
Yes.
So, like, I have my skills.
Yep.
If I have a great mentality to treating my community, I know my blind spots, and I'm going to look for somebody nearby me. Could be a PTA, could be another PT that's going to help fill that blind spot, right? So now the Venn diagram gets bigger. Because, it's not me.
Right, now you're what
My
side?
specialty is this. Sally's specialty is this.
Right.
I'm going to help you with this part, and Sally's going to step in and help us with getting us the rest of it, right? So now it's that. And so, there's a part, one of the really lovely things I think we have in our EMR system is this emotionally invest box. And so it's not something that nationally, it's a box at the top of a patient chart. It does not necessarily go into the patient account, but it's an internal note. It's a sticky note. Is what it is. But it's, hey, how do we have information shared that is consistent then across these things, right? So like, hey, I can share with my team member something quick to make sure that they then follow through on, hey, likes to be called Bob instead of Robert, has 3 kids. So it's the emotional connection piece of it that helps to then keep that patient, like, so, right, like you walk into somewhere, you haven't met somebody before, like, hey, you have 3 kids, right? Like, oh, they like talk about me and like care
matters.
and right, like there's a connection piece. Now, one of the really nice updates, first rolled it out years ago, and one of the nice updates they put was what day that was last updated. Because you have 3 kids, 2, 4, 6, and we haven't seen you. Because it goes to every chart you have with us. We haven't seen you in 5 years. Like, how's your 2-year-old? Well, he's 7 now.
You just scored 8 points and then lost more.
Exactly,
You're
right?
negative after that.
So that was a huge, like, I'm like, okay, that was, and I think it was just a matter of, like, we didn't see that, and then when it came out, but that was years ago, and now it's in there, and it's a lovely way to get that connection with the patient.
Yeah.
I roll right around that time. I'm like, so things have changed.
Sure.
So we try to protect them from themselves as well and say, yes, we know you feel ready. Let's still go slow to make sure that you fail small. Hey, I got jammed up that day and I had a ton of notes to write. How could you tweak your time management so you don't have that happen? Because if you just jump in with all of it, you're like,
overwhelmed.
Now I made that mistake and I can't recover because I got tomorrow's the same day.
Yeah.
And I'm in trouble again. So we're here to help support. So we support one-on-one. Hey, access to individual growth and development through the academy shouldn't be specific to leaders. Shouldn't be just clinic directors, district directors, and our leadership roles. Clinicians can reach out. We also support the leaders.
Right.
Hey, talk to me about your people. Hey, I got somebody who needs help with time management. What's that mean? What are you seeing? What are they doing that makes you think time management is the solution?
Right.
Because I challenge that it's trust of your team members, and they're not delegating, and so then they're taking on everything. Anyways, that's probably a whole other podcast that we could do. But
yeah, I mean, I feel like it brings it back to like an emotional, like you're paying attention to the emotions. What are the things people, where are the places they could fail? And let's make sure that there's a resource for them to get it so that if we notice that, they can correct themselves or with guidance. Yeah. We wrap up every show with the parting shot. Have you heard about this?
A little bit.
It's your chance to be, prophetic or mic drop moment, soapbox statement. What's something, if someone were to listen to this episode, they were to fast forward all the way to this, they were only going to listen to one thing, what would you lead them with?
I'll go back to what I said earlier about when you think about your growth and development, think about yourself and your growth and also how you are serving those around you.
Yeah.
Whether it's you're a leader and you're serving your employees, or whether you're a clinician and you're looking to grow and help your community and the patients that you treat. Don't just look for what excites you. You need that for energy.
Sure.
But what about the people around me? Reflect on what do they need from me? What do I owe them?
Yeah. Love it. Kurt, appreciate the time. Thanks for coming away from interacting with people. I know you love it.
Yeah.
And jumping on the podcast.
Appreciate it. Jimmy, thank you, man.
Awesome.